I will.
Call this meeting to order. Welcome to the October 7th meeting of the Town of Standish Planning Board. The meeting is now come to order. This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all the exhibits that are offered. Please notify me if you are unable to hear or see the material. The board works from a prepared agenda, and this evening we'll have approval of the previous meeting minutes for September 9th. We have 3 approvals of finding of facts to look at. No old business. We have 2 new items on the agenda, and we have 4 public hearings at the end for review. The board may receive any oral or documentary evidence, but such evidence is restricted to the subject matter of the agenda item. The board shall exclude irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious evidence. Citizens shall refrain from interrupting other speakers. The meeting is being taped, and it's very difficult to hear what is being said when multiple people speak at the same time. Citizens shall avoid personal attacks and conduct themselves in a civil, courteous manner as expected by all participants. All questions should be addressed through the chair. Speakers shall not attempt to engage in debate with other meeting participants. Upon hearing from the public, the hearing will be closed for the application, and the board will deliberate and vote on the application. Following the decision on the application, either towards the end of the meeting or at the next regular meeting, the board will prepare a written finding of facts and approve them for the records. Okay, we have currently 6 of us, so we have a quorum. Patrick Gear is missing at the moment, but he may show up. So, first item on the agenda is the minutes of the September 9th meeting. I had 2 items which I'd like to have Jackie check into when she gets back. But other than that, I didn't have anything. On page 7, the second paragraph, it says the vote on option 3 was 4 for and 2 against, and the motion failed, and that doesn't make any sense. So something just not right there.
I think she just repeated the vote, because the next vote in that same paragraph is the same split, just reversed. So I think she repeated it 4-4 instead of 4 against, but we'll check the tape.
Yeah, and then the other item I picked up on is on page 9 under Peter Bishop. The second paragraph, it talks about insulation around the 6-foot perimeter. I think that was the 6-inch haunch slab that was going to be, it's just a freestanding garage, so if she can just check the record on that as well. So that's all I had. Any other board members?
I didn't have anything.
Carolyn?
Yes. During the meeting, I tried to be very careful not to mention the heir of Manley Smith by name. And I see that appears here several times. I think near the end I used her first name, but I really tried to not identify. So I would just like it to reference the heir of Manley Smith, please.
All
So
right.
for example, on page 3, on the 3rd paragraph, page 4, top paragraph, I just think that's appropriate, that's all.
Talk about Margaret.
Yeah.
And we can check that out, and I don't see any reason,
Thank you.
not knowing whether she is the only one or not. I don't know, so.
Yeah, I mean, right, I just don't
Heirs
think
would
it's
be appropriate.
So do we want to hold off on approving until next time?
We can do that, if that's, we can have a motion to wait until Jackie check these out, make that change, or we can move forward and have her make those changes.
I just to move forward and have her make the changes.
All right? So we need a motion to approve having her check out those 2 items I had and
In mind, yeah.
adjusting everything to the ears. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes, subject to 2 verifications and changing the name to the heirs of Smith. Welcome, Patrick. We now have a full quorum.
Apologize that I'm late.
No problem. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? I think that's
Abstain.
1 abstain. You abstaining? Approving. Approving. So, 6, 4, and 1 abstain. That's primarily because you weren't here during the meeting?
I was not here.
Yes, good idea. Thank you very much. We have 3 finding of facts this evening. We could do them all at once or individual. Does the board have a
Individually,
preference?
Please.
Individual, okay. Let's see, we'll take the first one is for Peter Bishop. Map 22, Lot 20, 31 Bonnie Eagle Pond Road. This was for a replacement garage structure. And the only 2 items I saw, and they're in here, is the recommendation that the CEO approve the erosion control plan and the replanting plan. Other board members?
Nothing for me.
Is there a motion to approve the finding of facts?
Make a motion to approve the finding of fact on Bishop.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Are you scribing this stuff down, or?
I'm taking notes just to make sure, yeah, since Jackie's not here.
That's what I thought. Further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Abstain.
6 to 1. All right, next item on the agenda will be Jack and Nan Carey DeBond, and this was for a tear down and rehab of the cottage at 4 Rocky Shore Avenue. Looked like it was all in condition 7 I asked to have added, and that's been put in here. Have the town received that site plan yet? No. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think
One?
7 is complete. And I reviewed the tape. It did say that after the 42 by 44 proposed building, it should read with 15-foot offset off southeasterly boundary on the lot.
Right. On the easterly boundary, right?
Southeasterly, I think
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
That was in the minutes as well.
Mm.
Okay, so we need to add that, so it'll be building. Placement on the, let's see, 42 by 44 proposed building with 15-foot offset on the southeasterly boundary, placement on the lot.
I think it just got rid of the word placement and just said building with 15.
That would make more sense.
Yeah.
So eliminate placement and add 15-foot offset on the southeasterly boundary of the lot. Okay. Anyone else or additional? Okay, is there a motion to approve with that one modification?
Yeah, I'll second that as long as it's amended, yeah.
Moved and seconded. Moved by Carolyn, seconded by Todd. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? 6 and 1 abstain. last item was for Clifford Strump, and that was for a garage at his residence at 15 Edith Marie Way. It seemed pretty straightforward. I had nothing on that one.
I don't have anything
Did
here.
that have electricity and water to it?
It has an existing three-bay garage there that's operable. This is an addition for an
Oh,
additional
This is-
3
Okay, yeah,
bays.
gotcha, yep, that one, okay.
And he's got septic and everything there.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of the garage by the lake, if that had electricity and water.
That was the previous one. And there's electricity to the cottage there.
Or not to the
And I
garage?
think there's a well.
Is it gonna be a garage or is it gonna be a cottage? Accessory
This is a-
building?
The one that we previously approved is a 19-foot by 19-foot garage where there was an existing structure. This one is for a 3-bay addition to his existing garage so he can have his business there.
Thank you.
Any comments from any members of the board?
Nope.
Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the finding of fact.
I'll second it.
All right, Frank seconds it. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 6 in favor, 1 abstained. All right, I'm going to just take a second and sign these for Scott. And today is the 7th. All right. Thank you all. All right. We'll move on to our new business. The first item is for Patco Construction. This is on the Napa facility on Route 25. Somebody want to make a presentation?
My name's Greg Pattison. I work at Patco Construction. I want to thank the board for seeing me and coming up here again to ask for this variance. We were digging the footings, and Brian called me and says, we hit ledge. I said, well, is it soft ledge or hard ledge? Is what Charlie asked me, and it's pretty hard. It's breaking up in little pieces, not big blocks. So then, didn't think, we said, geez, we gotta go across with water. What's that gonna do? And I'm thinking the cost, and then someone suggested there was a thing within the law, within the city bylaws that the board could consider letting us put a private well on there. So we looked at the cost, and Brian thought it'd be at least 3 days if we hammered it. That's a long time to go to shut, to do the traffic on 25. So we thought we'd put the application together, submit it to you, and see if you saw in your wisdom to issue that. So that's really all there is to say.
So this is a modification to the existing approval, just to change the water
Yes.
supply.
Yep, that's it. We don't want to change, there's no reason to change anything else.
I mean, it seems to me as a reasonable request. I'm not sure we'd want to put Route 25 in a traffic situation for 3 days. That's just my opinion. Anybody else?
I just have 2 questions.
Okay.
One question is, the schoolhouse has water, right? Public water. So this is just a possibility question. Is it possible to bore next to the path for the schoolhouse water that goes across the street?
No, there's be so many, there's be so much apart, right? Brian, there's be so much apart, and they will not let us tap that line at all. Water company says, no way.
Okay. Then my second question is just, I'm unclear how close the new well would be to the septic.
It's within the, it's on the plan, I put it on the plan, we made sure we had.
Couldn't really read that.
Yeah, we're 140 feet from the septic
Okay, yep,
and over 100 from the, or 140 feet from the leach pad and 100 from septic.
perfect. Thank you.
I have no further questions about it.
Andrew? any
Nope.
thoughts?
No,
Questions?
I don't have any questions.
Deb? Patrick?
Is that new building sprinklered?
No,
Okay, so this is just domestic service,
correct.
and
We only have 2 toilets.
the depth of the service line from the well to the building, will that still be below the frost
Oh,
line?
yes, sir. Yeah, well, if, we're gonna have to hammer it.
So you will still be hammering, just not within the right of way?
We're not in the right of way, we'll be on the, not in the road, we'll be
Yep.
on the back of the property. We had to hammer just to get the footings in.
Okay. All right.
Todd?
No. I read the 3 pages, it laid everything out.
Carolyn, anything else?
No, that was it, just my 2 questions.
All right, first thing we need to do is find the application that's submitted by Patco Construction for the property of map lot 3634 to be complete as presented.
I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded to deem the application complete. Any further discussion by the board? I think there's one item. We have to open it up to the public. Is there anybody here from the public who would like
Good
to
jo-
speak
good
about
job.
this? It appears not. Okay. Just wanted to make sure we did that. Got carried away with my approvals here. All right. No further discussion by the board? All those in favor? Unanimous? Okay. And now, a motion to approve the amendment.
Make that motion.
Charlie, just a point of order, I think we technically need to waive that
Yeah.
the proposal was approved by the water district. The ordinance requires
Page 2
that.
bottom.
Yeah. All right, I'll move to waive the requirement that the cost comparison of the public versus private water system be approved by the Portland Water District as allowed under subsection 181-35.9E.2.
I'll second.
Discussion by the board. Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Now, let's see. I'll read the recommended motion. Move that the board grant approval under the provision of the Standish Land Use Code for amendment to site plan application submitted by Patco Construction to waive the requirements to connect to public water per standard of section 181-35.9E2.
I'll second.
So I guess I made that motion.
Or if you want, I'll make the motion and someone can second it.
I've got Charlie making it, Todd seconding it.
Okay, that works. Only condition was, as amendment to an approved plan, the board's review was limited to the change from the previous approval. All conditions of the previous approval remain in effect. You good with that, Todd?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank
Drill
you.
away.
Thank you.
Don't hurt that hammer drill.
Turn up 25 for 3 days. is-
All right, next item on the agenda. and JP Properties LLC, map 10, lot 61, site plan application, proposed Rose Lane off Route 25, apartments, 5 buildings with 12 two-bedroom apartments in each. Mr. Meek, floor is yours.
Good evening, thank you, Charlie. My name is Rick Meek, I'm with Teradyne Consultants, civil engineering firm out of New Gloucester. I'm here with the owner slash applicant, R and JP Properties LLC. I have very few slides, but I have a lot of material to cover. So the slide up here is just a location map. The approximately 25.5 acre parcel outlined in white there is located at the end of Rose Lane. Rose Lane intersects Ospey Trail about 1/10 of a mile from the Hannaford intersection and about a third of a mile from the Northeast Road Ospey Trail intersection. Parcel is located within the Standish Corner Form-Based Code Village District. Parcel is currently primarily forested. It includes an unnamed stream that crosses the site about where the Cowan Road right-of-way comes up off of Northeast Road. And there are some areas of wetlands on the site. Scott, if you could switch to the next slide. So as Scott mentioned in his memo, the northern 2/3 of the parcel was previously approved for a solar project. It included the, delineation of this 66-foot right-of-way extending off of Rose Lane through the property, and then crossing that stream to access the solar project. Next slide, please. So the site plan, the proposed project includes extending Rose Lane about 550 feet from the existing right-of-way into the site. The extension will be constructed as a town residential street, including parallel parking on the street and sidewalks on the development side. The site work includes construction of five buildings. Each building will have 12 two-bedroom units for a total of 60 units on the site. 3 of the buildings will be fronted on Rose Lane per the guidelines of the code. The proposed site drive is looped through the site with a single intersection with Rose Lane. The total parking, including the 16 parallel parking spaces on Rose Lane, is 120 parking spaces. That's equivalent to 2 spaces per unit. Other site amenities include the internal sidewalks, site lighting, a cluster mailbox located in that first parking bay, parking stall area just off of Rose Lane, and an enclosed dumpster / recycling area at the end of the main entrance drive. Next slide, please. There's a landscaping plan, has a mix of trees on site and low plantings around the buildings, and there is a healthy street tree component on Rose Lane. Next slide, please. Portland Water, so this is a grading utility plan. Portland Water District will, assuming we get approval, we will be extending the public main within the Rose Lane extension to serve the site. There will be additional water main going up into the site to serve those 2 buildings that aren't fronted on Rose Lane. Underground communications and power will be extended within Rose Lane to serve the site, and also to extend and serve the solar project. Subsurface wastewater disposal systems are shown. They haven't been fully designed, but they're over 2,000 gallons each, so they're engineered systems. Each system has each building has a pretreatment chamber, discharge to a septic tank, flow out of the building goes into a septic tank, flow from the septic tank goes into a pretreatment chamber, the effluent goes to a pump, and pumps up to one of 3 disposal areas. Disposal area 1 is in the plan view, south of the bottom left corner there, near the dumpster enclosure. That would accommodate flow from buildings 1 and 2, which are the 2 buildings furthest from Rose Lane. The second system is in the top left part of the site. That would be collecting effluent from buildings 3 and 4, which are the first 2 buildings on Rose Lane as you come into the site. And then the third system is to the left of building 2, in the middle of that loop, and that would collect the effluent from building 5. Stormwater runoff from the site is collected in a series of catch basins and a pipe network, and the majority of it is routed to a proposed gravel wetland, which is on the bottom right of the plan, on the opposite side of Rose Lane as the 5 buildings. There's also a proposed level spreader and buffer to accommodate a portion of the parking lot up in the top right part of the site. And all this information is within a stormwater report that was submitted to DEP for Chapter 500 permit. The proposed stormwater BMPs, the gravel wetland and the buffer, effectively treat 100% of the on-site and Rose Lane impervious area. This project will impact about 757 square feet of wetland, and that's primarily up in the just across the parking lot from building 1. That wetland is getting impacted by some grading associated with the parking lot. Next slide, please. In your packet was included some typical floor plans. Next slide, please. And typical elevations, as well as some renderings, which I didn't provide here, but and I'm not an architect, so I won't talk too much about the design of the buildings, but certainly try to answer any questions or forward them to the architect if there are any. As I mentioned a little bit, the permitting for this project will require a Chapter 500 stormwater permit, an NRPA permit by rule for activities within 75 feet of a protected resource. Scott, if you could go back to the grading utility plan. So that gravel wetland, let me back up. The stream is the solid line, squiggly line on the furthest right of the plan, going from north to south. The next line over is a wetland limit line, and the way DEP defines that natural resource, or those setbacks from that natural resource, is off those wetlands associated with that stream. And so they have a 25-foot setback and a 75-foot setback. The gravel wetland is within that 75-foot setback, right up to that 25-foot setback limit. Therefore, we need a permit by rule to do that activity. In addition, we'll have an Army Corps permit for the freshwater wetlands, as I mentioned, up there by Building 1. Those permits have been submitted to the DEP, and we don't anticipate receiving that permit for a couple months. We just got accepted, so it's at least a 3-month process for them to review. We'll certainly forward that permit once we receive it. We are in receipt of the engineering peer review comments as well as Scott's memo. And when we return to the board, we will have those comments addressed as completely as possible. I would like to address some of Scott's questions that he raised in his memo. On page 2, he talks about completeness. While we, regarding the septic designs, while we acknowledge that the completed septic designs were not included in the application, we request that the board consider submission and review of the designs as a standard to be met as part of the approval process and not as a completeness deficiency. On page 3, regarding the requirement for 6-foot rain gardens, we do not have rain gardens shown on this plan due to the existing terrain and the proximity of those buildings as required to the Rose Lane right-of-way. We physically don't have the space to put those rain gardens in, and I guess it's a question to the board is if that is something that is waivable. We are, as I mentioned, we are collecting the stormwater from the entire site, majority of the site, and collecting and treating it in the gravel wetland and the buffer, as mentioned before. On page 4, regarding the single entrance, it is my understanding that previous concept plans that were discussed with the town prior to the latest iteration, or the most recent iteration before this plan, included some dead-end parking areas that the Public Works thought and Fire Department thought were hazardous or not in line with their expectations. So Scott is right, there was a plan that showed a second intersection with Rose Lane. Again, due to the terrain of this site, we've opted for this looped configuration. We feel that the loop meets the access requirements and maneuverability requirements for the fire department and emergency vehicles. And finally, we accept that the preliminary approval is not possible based on the outstanding comments and the lack of or the deficiency with regard to the septics. But we'd certainly like the opportunity to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Scott?
I think he covered it pretty well and even went through some of the questions I had, so I think that's about where we're at this time. Nothing's changed since I wrote up this memo from the town side, so.
What's the status on the solar farm? That
Yet to be
must
seen.
getting close to a year out.
I think we're approaching 2 at this point. Last I knew, they were still working with CMP on how to get it actually hooked up before they started ground.
And in their approval, we had overhead.
Right, 3-phase.
Yeah. So how do those two work together?
I can answer that. The owner is going to require that they put that at least in front of the site underground.
Yep. Until you hit ledge, and then you'll come back and request overhead. But so it doesn't affect the solar project at all that we already approved? I guess is.
I mean, if
How
the
do they-
difference is overhead versus buried, that's something we'll have to talk about at the staff level.
Yeah,
If that constitutes one of the minor changes that the CEO can approve, I think that the board can consider this approval as somewhat an amendment of that portion of that plan. I mean, we frequently.
I mean, the road is, right?
The road is being built up to a higher standard under
Higher
this
standard,
proposal. So I think the board's approval, should it approve this plan, would to some extent amend that previous approval on this same site. I mean, this is a new project. but it
With or
does
without their
overlap.
approval? Like, would they have to approve that their stuff goes underground?
I mean, they do not own the site. They are
Okay.
working with the applicant
Yeah,
for the work on their property.
Okay.
So, I mean, the applicant has the right title and interest in
All right.
this.
Maybe driven by Central Maine Power too, to some degree.
Yes.
Where, can you show where the solar project is?
So it's
In
on the
relation-
other side of the stream off the end of Rose Lane.
If you could go back
had
to the
it up
second
there.
yeah, you had
slide.
a,
Yeah, it's in the, like, the first or second slide, yeah.
C20 from the previous,
It's just stuck here. There we go.
right there.
So the apartment complex is here in this empty space proposed, and the roadway continues to the rear of the property. And like I said, this was approved some time ago by the board.
It seems
Is
odd.
that a, yeah,
Go
is,
ahead, Deb.
sorry, where we have like 30 days to give somebody an approval of something, isn't there a time limit that these applicants have?
Site plans expire after, if without a significant start, site plans expire after 3 years.
3 years, okay, thank you.
It would seem very odd that they would run three-phase power overhead to the beginning of this project and then go three-phase power underneath the Rose Lane, and then back up overhead three-phase into the, and they need three phases, I understand it, for the solar farms.
yeah. We already talked about that, right, with that application of why they can't go underground? Is that right, Charlie?
It was CMP's preference at the time. I think we had a letter from CMP saying they wanted to go overhead for the solar farm.
Conflicting,
There must be
Conflicting things.
single-phase power into the housing development right now, because there's no reason for that to have three-phase power.
Correct.
You agree with that?
Yes.
Relying on your
Yeah,
electrical
no,
expertise.
There's no reason that the residences have three-phase power going in. So it seems we have a bit of a conflict.
Is that something you can get some clarity out of CMP on, maybe?
Yep,
If
I'll
they'll
try.
talk to you?
Try, yeah,
And their preference is to have overhead lines. It's just easier for them to maintain.
Yeah.
And so
Be nice if they
the
put it-
underground requirement, that's a town standard, I'm assuming, okay.
Yep. A lot more conduit in the ground if you're running three-phase. You'd have to run a three-phase line through and a single-phase line through. I don't think they'd split it underground, would they?
in past
Typically,
projects,
no.
past projects, underground three-phase, you can come off with a three-phase
lead.
and then switch it to single-phase for this apartment site.
So these apartments are 3 stories? Are there elevators?
Not, no,
No elevators?
no.
So it's not for elderly housing then at all?
Certainly first floor, it's not intended to discriminate, it's just that there's no elevators proposed.
So first floor is ADA accessible, but the others are not.
Correct.
I had a question around that. On the pictures, it looks like the first floor dips down.
Yeah.
Why
So-
is that, how is that work out?
Scott, could you call up the elevation maybe? So this is the bottom right elevation is of this, there are basically two different buildings. This bottom elevation, this elevation is for the buildings on Rose Lane. And there were several discussions when we made the application. We showed stairs coming up from Rose Lane to access that side, the front of the building. That faces Rose Lane. The architect has since that time, come up with this scenario where the front of the building that faces Rose Lane, that access could be recessed. If you go to the floor plan, Scott, that entryway in the middle on the bottom is facing Rose Lane, and that, you would enter that building and then
You enter the basement?
kind of a half level down,
Yeah.
and then come up the stairs to the first level. There's still access to the first floor from the parking side at each building.
So like a split for you.
Yes.
So what was the reasoning for,
To try to
Do that.
reduce that stairs in the front, on that Rose Lane side.
so instead of having the stairs outside, you have the stairs inside?
I don't have
Safer
that.
that way.
Well, and if you're, well,
Dig it up.
you still would, so those ones, you would need to, on the first floor, you would need to go upstairs to get to the first floor, right?
From that,
Yeah.
from the Rose Lane side.
From the
correct?
Rose Lane side. But from the handicap parking spaces, you wouldn't?
Correct.
And then what about the buildings 1 and 2 on Sunday Drive?
Those would be the same footprint, just wouldn't have that entry on the bottom, facing Rose Lane.
Right, is there not a, it looks like there's a door on the back. Is there not a pathway to the parking lot in the back of those buildings? Like the 3, 4, and 5 both have 2 entrances.
No, that's more of a, I should have included the other floor plan. It's more of a utility closet with access from the outside. It's not for entrance. So there's not a through passage from front to back of the building for the residents.
Like mechanical.
For building 1 and,
It's mechanical on it.
for building 1 and 2,
Correct.
but 3, 4, and 5 do have 2 entrances.
Yes.
What about visitor parking?
We've got two spaces per unit. We're twice as many as the ordinance requires, so
So no plans for visitor parking?
if somebody has one vehicle, then yes, there's room for visitors.
Are they gonna be numbered, or like, is people gonna have their own space?
Not at this time.
Is there any possibility of having a connection trail to Papa's Ice Cream's lot? Because right now they would have to walk, if they wanted to get ice cream, they would have to walk, get in the car or walk all the way around.
Yeah.
It seems really, really
That
close.
list is yes.
Yeah, we own Papa's Ice Cream.
Well, and I noticed it was Sunday Drive, which made sense.
You'd be looking at something like a wood chip, though, because you're gonna go through quite a section of wetland to get there.
Yeah, but it's a very short
Walkable.
it's a very short distance, and it doesn't need to, I mean, it doesn't have to be, ADA compliant even, yeah, it could be wood chips, could be.
Yeah.
Um, what about, I don't see anything for the members in the community to recreate on site. No playground for children, no picnic tables or any place for gazebo or anything like that. Was that something that was planned?
Not at this time.
No? Because there's nothing in this area for walking your dog or any, so. Other things, I'm going through my list right now, Charlie, if you
Yeah.
can stop me if you want.
Keep going.
I got building first floor. The traffic, study. Can you tell me what the number, there's a lot of numbers on here and I'm not quite sure how to read it. What is the number of trips per day?
I don't have, can I borrow your copy? So, a typical weekday, would be 404 trips in a day. The AM weekday peak hour on Rose Lane would be 24. The PM weekday peak hour would be 31. From the site, I'm sorry, let's see. Yeah, from the site, AM weekday peak would be 28. PM weekday would be 34. Saturday peak hour would be 25, and Sunday peak hour would be 22. So it's this middle column, number of trips
Right,
generated.
not the very right, okay. So that only accounts for this development putting traffic into Rose Lane?
Yeah, the two weekday peaks that say in parentheses generator,
Yep.
that's the site traffic.
That's the existing conditions?
No, that's what's
sorry.
coming from this proposed site. The street information is what's existing on that street.
Oh, it says street and then generator,
Generator means this site,
this site, and the street means,
Rose Lane.
okay, all right. I'm glad I wouldn't have guessed that. So 404 trips for everything,
For the generator, for the site,
just for the generator, okay.
each day. That includes trips coming in and trips going out. So
Yes, yep.
With a full
But
building.
including the development that's already there?
no,
Or is this on top of that? So what is it on top of what's already there?
I don't think that study has that information other than the weekday peak.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
trying to make sense of that too. So if you look at just the street, not the project, that's 24 for the AM peak hour. And then for the site, the generator, AM peak hour is 28. So is that 28 additional from the 24? Or is that just
Yes.
4 more?
No, that's
28 more?
That's 52 trips in the AM peak with the existing traffic plus this site.
So with 60 units, we think that only 28 are going to be generated in the
It's-
AM peak hour?
Yes, it's because the AM peak hour is, say, between 7 and 9, and not every vehicle leaves at the same time. So it's part of the traffic analysis is factoring in those different times that trips are generated.
Yeah, so my concern is you have a daycare there, a lot of trips going to the daycare. That this development, the developments that's already there, I would like a total for all of it, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
So the street only takes into consideration the other development that's there, not the daycare?
It's just, I'll check, I don't know for sure.
And the solar project too, that's gonna have two cars. A week.
year.
Well, when it's being constructed, there's gonna be a lot. And then if the road does extend the way we want it to, over to 35, then we're opening up a whole can of worms. Yeah, I just don't, I don't see how you get the number for the entirety of the area.
forget, does the town even own that? We didn't purchase that, spend the dollar and buy that?
Rose Lane?
No, the extension coming in off of 35.
There is no plans as part of this project or any other project to, at this
The road.
time, make any connection across between the two roads. The town doesn't have the full right to build that without crazy work, and as far as I know, has no particular interest in doing that in a short run. It's there, we want to make sure that connection is possible in long-term future build-out, but current plans do not have any connections through
Well,
there.
I feel like, Scott, this is the long term. I mean, you have a solar project in this. What else can build?
Well,
to
there's
be-
the Cowan Drive that you will see on the maps
Yeah.
is not a road. It is not built up. It is a right-of-way that it vaguely exists. It is not, there's no road there to make a
Correct.
connection to. Well, again, this is part of the build-out. This is setting up that right-of-way to make these connections potential, but I'm just saying, this project is not building a road that would connect across there. That would be a different traffic study.
No major issues with dead-end length.
We're within the length allowed. That's part of what I'm hoping to get from public safety.
And they haven't responded yet.
Yeah, they're reviewing the plans.
Those are all of my questions.
Thank you. Well done.
I have a question. Has any electrical infrastructure started for the solar?
No.
Or this project, obviously?
No.
And I may have missed this at the beginning, is it the same construction company doing both projects? What's the tie between
So
the
the-
solar project and this
The
project?
applicant for the apartments owns and fee the property that the solar panel or solar project is, or a portion of the solar project that's approved. So they have an agreement that they can build the solar project, but it's the applicant for this project that owns the property.
I see. So, did you take the action? Is there gonna be a need to merge the electrical infrastructure plans? Merge the plans so one feeds off the other?
The intent would be to run, for the solar project, run the three-phase, whether it's overhead or underground. The applicant's preference is it's underground, but regardless, run three-phase for the solar project. The apartment project would get power from those lines, but downgrade it to single phase.
Through a transformer.
So there'd be a need to merge that engineering then?
Yes. Well, the CMP would ultimately own the lines. They would dictate how that infrastructure gets connected.
So is that gonna be pitched to the board at some point?
When we have concrete plans for the electric, we can certainly
Okay.
share that.
That's what I'd like to see, please.
Anybody else?
I've-
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question relates back to the fact of, and it was brought up in the memorandum, the hydrant, you don't have the letter to serve yet from the Public Water District, and these will be a sprinklered system, so, that's a critical element. But the hydrant's only 700 feet away. I did have a question or concern about, basically, because that's a pretty extensive line, and the separation of, in a sense, the water main with the other secondary thing. You haven't drilled any test pits? That subsection behind where Rose Lane is, because it's behind Georgie Jack, I've been back there before, is kind of there is some, wetlands and things like that. Have you, as far as the septic system, you haven't, have any plans to do any pre-drilling? I saw your construction phase plan. It seems like you're, moving pretty forward without, like, those two elements, being up front.
So we do have test pits for, there was a soil study done for the property. We've had test pits for the stormwater features. I believe there are test pits that weren't obviously included in your package, but there are test pits for septic. with public main, there's no need to, are you asking if there's tests for ground, or quantity of groundwater?
Two different issues, but, sorry, one is for, since my concerns being with the septic system, because it's on public water, the septic system outflow there in that area, based on where your plan is, there's a lot of wetlands, both on one side and behind the other side. So my concern was, making sure the subsurface water, runoff isn't going to be overwhelming that system. The other thing is that, as I said, when you're building multi-unit housings, especially these ones, which are built on, basically a large, number of units in a small area, that letter to serve and getting the, water closer. If there was a fire or a concern, the hydrant being 700 feet away is my issue.
Certainly, if the water district recommends that or if the fire department recommends that they want a hydrant on site, we'll certainly add one. There's no opposition to do that.
Yeah.
My previous experience is that the distance for a hydrant is 1,000 feet, and if that is satisfying the fire department, I'm not gonna add a hydrant just because. But if there's, the fire department wants a hydrant, or the water district wants to put in a hydrant, then we will put in a hydrant on site.
Do you know what size line there is on Rose Lane?
I believe it's an 8-inch.
It says 8-inch on the plans.
Yeah, age.
Clarify that, make sure. Wasn't a 2 or 2.5 inch. That would make a big difference.
Yeah, sorry, that was, Charlie, I don't remember how large of a line going out of that. As I said, the hydrant's at, far enough away that I don't know what's going down that road.
Fire chief or the inspector's got to
Yeah, I'm sure
give
the
us
sheet,
some feedback on
Yeah.
that.
as I said, there was nothing in the, sorry, it was in the memoranda. There was two areas of concern I, brought up. We haven't done a site walk of it yet either, so.
We may want to schedule that before we're done tonight. What is the status of Rose Lane on 1 of 1 here, which is the second sheet? I assume that what's blocked off around the hammerhead is the extent of what the town? Is that a town way, that far in?
So,
Is it private?
so there's a right-of-way defining the limits of the built part of Rose Lane. As part of the garden side estates project, there was this strip that runs parallel with the property line between this applicant's project and the garden side estates project that is reserved for the town.
You have a pointer? So-
It's going to be on a different sheet. It's going to be on sheet C10 or C10. Third sheet.
So that strip of land where Scott's cursor is now is part of the garden side estates project that was reserved for future connection for the town. Got the solar project was approved with this configuration, and rather than duplicate crossings, that crossing along that property line would be a lot more wetland impact. Crossing, obviously, so I believe the thought was that this crossing on this site would serve as that master plan connectivity for the town.
Does the applicant have deeded right to utilize that space?
I think the town does, as part of that garden.
Town has
site.
not
Has the town
exercised
taken
that right. As part of the solar project, Mark Floor, who currently retains that right-of-way for access to his property, which the solar project is using, was giving the ability to build that right-of-way there and established that right-of-way. So it's my understanding that it is an established right-of-way as part of that approval, but it would be good for the board to get some clarity on that.
Yeah, I would think that whoever's going to mortgage these buildings is going to want that assurity as well for access. That's where I was going with it. On the boundary survey, there's no monumentation shown, there's no meets and bounds shown. I think that needs to be added added to finalize those plans.
I think that was that
I think
labeled
it's
as an
frozen
existing?
in space.
I think that was that labeled as an existing conditions plan, not a boundary survey?
Yes. Monumentation would be existing, maybe. But you're gonna need it anyway, so.
Yeah.
How many phases was this?
So initially, we're thinking 2 phases, buildings 1 and 2, which are not adjacent to Rose Lane. And then the second phase would be the completion of Rose Lane and those 3 buildings that front on Rose Lane.
So for the next meeting, when you guys come, can you show the application for the entire project, for the DEP and the entire project, not phase 1 and then phase 2, but the
So
entire project?
It is. So I think,
Where were the,
so the site,
the
there's an overall.
applications are in here?
Say that again?
The DEP applications are in here?
No.
Copies of those are not. Their copies are with the town.
Can you include those for
Sure.
us, for the board, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't think that phase line ever made it to C11 either. C12 shows phase 1.
Okay. You want to see you want to see the delineated phase limits?
I think you just make it clearer for some of the board members. Yeah, it's not on any of those grading utility or anything. I think it mentioned it was on grading utility, but
Yeah, those
I
have,
didn't see it.
I think that may have been a comment from the peer review, is that the flesh out of the grading and the utilities wasn't included in our plans, and we hadn't
Yes.
fleshed it out.
Yeah, I think we need some more detail on the phasing plan to make sure that we know how this is gonna work. The plan that was submitted with just the roadway and the buildings doesn't show
But I'm assuming some
how
of the
the utilities
stormwater.
are getting there, which look like they're running under parts of phase 2 that are not being built in phase 1, and some of the stormwater, how, make sure that's all gonna work all together,
Right.
so.
Some of the stormwater must go with phase 1.
I assume a good chunk of it is, but we need that laid out, how that's gonna work in the in-between time.
The fire chief look at that turnaround at the end, make sure he can get his fire truck around those radiuses. I'm not sure the ladder truck will make it. 25 foot's a pretty tight radius for that beast.
Killing vegetation.
The landscaping plan, I got a vague remembrance, and I thought I looked it up. They all have to be native trees, native species. I'm not sure these all are, that's something that needs to be checked out. Is that true?
I
That's what
believe
we've
it
done
is,
on a
Charlie.
number of the site plans down there, is requested native trees. Species, I should say.
I can't quote you section number, but I believe that is a requirement.
So you just check that out and make sure those are all up to snuff.
Will do.
Can you also, can you review the extent of wetlands on the existing conditions plan? Looks like there's an area where the proposed
Yes,
road.
I apologize, when that plan was created, it grabbed from the solar project, getting the limits of the fill associated with that stream crossing. So the wetlands are shown as they exist now on the site plan, grading plan. That representation is showing the limits of fill based on the solar project building their stream crossing. So we'll correct that so that it shows what's actually there right now.
Can I get back to the sidewalk a little bit?
Absolutely.
Because especially if you look at phase 1, you have a sidewalk that just goes along the parking lot to the entrances, that one entrance of building 1 and 2. but there's no sidewalk to actually convey people down Sunday Drive and onto Rose Lane at all.
That's a good point. They're not connected.
Yeah,
No,
the
they're not.
sidewalk comes off from where the mailboxes are and goes down to Rose Lane.
Yeah, but on phase one,
It's
do you
not
see
in
that?
phase one, it's shown on C11,
Yeah, it's phase two.
it's phase two.
And
It
phase
does-
two just goes around the buildings of phase two, but it doesn't continue, it doesn't get anybody in building one or two anywhere, except to their car.
Yeah.
I stand corrected, the sidewalk that's shown on the phase one is not connected to anything.
Yeah,
It's the one on the other side of the parking lot.
right.
Correct.
And none of it is connected to Rose Lane, where if people wanted to walk out to 25 to the bank or shopping center or any place. There's nothing there to get them down the street safely. And now, hopefully, the council might address that at some point.
With the pond that's there, on the grading utility plan, sidewalk would have to be somewhat near the building, when you're down to that other parking lot.
Say that again?
If you look at sheet
Scott, could you go?
C12,
Yeah.
to the south of building one,
Yeah?
you got a treatment pond in there.
No, that's,
You got some kind of a pond,
That's
a
a-
hole.
that's a knoll, actually.
You're gonna put a knoll there, all right. So you can go over the knoll or closer to the building to get down to that other parking lot. There's no connection from the sidewalk on the back parking lot to the parking lot between the buildings, I think is what Carolyn was,
Or even down Sunday Lane to go like out if you wanted to walk.
yeah, you just have to pull that mound back,
We will discuss that.
kind of a connectivity for walking. Good catch, I didn't see that. Yeah, because you could just extend it off and then down the side of the road.
Jack on trees.
Yeah.
And if these people are gonna have kids in there, I mean, let's have at least a minor playground in there for them somewhere.
That is my biggest concern, that
That's what I'm
these,
saying.
I think college dorms have more green space.
Maybe some kind of a
work
multi-purpose
in.
field beyond
It doesn't need to be
building
big.
5.
It doesn't need to be big,
Picnic
and,
table, cover,
yeah, and a very simple playground.
Something.
And I'm just shocked that there's no community space, a community room. I'm guessing this will be an association of some kind?
It's an apartment complex, it would be owned by the owner.
Okay. So no,
It's not a condo,
Not a
it's not
condo.
a, it's an apartment project.
right, so they don't have any meetings that they'll need to attend?
this reminds me of the place out there in
Yes.
Yarmouth right on Route 1, where there's just stacks and stacks of these units, and there's not even nothing, nowhere to even sit outside or anything. It's, you know what I'm talking about out there in Yarmouth?
I don't.
Oh,
Next to VIP, right there by Hannaford's.
Yeah.
Talking about. So the gravel wetland, that's basically just a treatment pond, right?
Yeah, it's a
But there's no way, you'd have to make some way.
DEP, BMP that,
Something new, exciting,
well, it,
Yeah, I used to-
name-wise.
what I'm saying, Annie and
Yes.
his snowshoe club, yeah.
it checks all the
That's
boxes for
treatment.
treatment and
It's the best, yeah. It's the way to go.
Also,
Do we want to open this up to the public at this
I
point?
would think so. Is people here to speak about this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I figured.
yes.
All right. The board ready for that? See what the public's got to say? I just ask people to the public to come up, give us your name and where you live, and then inform us.
And maybe like, what, 5 minutes and,
Well, appears to be a number of them, so we'll have other public hearings. This won't be the only one.
Hi, good evening. My name is Deborah Coelho. I live at 6 Gardenside Drive. I'm a resident of the Gardenside Estates condominium complex, which is a 55-plus community that has 38 condos on private property. The average age of our residents is approximately 70 years old, many of whom are on fixed incomes. Traffic is our main concern through the community. Our roadways are listed as private and have a posted speed limit of 15 miles an hour throughout the community, which consist of Gardenside, Sunflower, and Blueberry. These roads are narrower than the public streets, and in the winter it becomes difficult for 2 cars to pass by one another due to the snowbanks. This is just within our community. Sidewalks throughout the complex are not plowed, so the residents have to walk in the road to get their mail, dispose of trash in the dumpster, or simply visit with one another, because we can't afford the extra funds to pay the landscaping company to shovel or clear the sidewalks. Gardenside residents have to pay to have its roads plowed. They're not maintained by the town. We bring this up because we're mainly concerned about the traffic on Route 25. Currently, traffic pulling out of Rose Lane at 6:30 in the morning have to wait several minutes to pull out of Rose Lane onto Route 25 due to the solid line of traffic coming down Route 25 from the Leamington Steep Falls area heading towards Gorham and Portland. In the afternoons, returning home up Route 25 from the Gorham-Portland area, anytime between 3 and 6 p.m., the traffic starts to back up from Randall Orchards, and in the summertime, you sit in traffic from MB Tractor to God knows how long to get to the intersection of Rose Lane. Adding approximately 100-plus cars, which now sounds even more from what the gentleman was explaining, for those 60 apartments trying to get to Rose Lane, that traffic is going to be routinely backed up to Dingley Springs Road or further. Currently, we're having people cut down Orchard Road, which is a very small street, and into our complex, which again is a private roadway, to get to the Rose Lane daycare, rather than sit in the traffic to go the extra, I don't know, maybe 50 feet to get to the Rose Lane intersection. If these 60 apartments were to be built, this same cut-through would now become an everyday occurrence, putting our residents at risk. Our residents are out walking on our private roads daily. Many of them are walking their dogs, recreating, as you mentioned. This increased traffic would put those residents at risk. Most of those cars cutting through our complex are not going to be traveling at our 15-mile-an-hour posted speed limit. Again, we want to mention this because this is private property and our residents pay to maintain this roadway. Another concern with this increased traffic is the people cutting across Gardenside to get to Rose Lane. They have to pass our dumpster, which is right there in the main area. We're concerned that now the residents that are going to the apartments will begin dropping their trash off as they're cutting through Gardenside to get to their complex. Again, Gardenside residents have to pay for this dumpster, and we don't feel we should have to incur additional costs to increase the disposal. Keep in mind, most of our residents are living on fixed incomes and right now can barely afford the HOA fees that we currently have, let alone what those fees will go up to maintain the increased traffic on the roadways and the increased possible dumpster fees. We understand that the state of Maine is facing a housing shortage. It has to add approximately 80,000 new housing units by 2030. With the bulk of those needed in York and Cumberland counties, we understand we can't stand before you this evening and say we don't want it in our neighborhood, but we do want to be safe. We'd like to propose using the logging road that has been established at Pepper's Ice Cream, have that be the access to the apartments that they want to build. If they develop the logging road as their access point, this would relieve all of the traffic and safety concerns on the Gardenside estates. The residents of the apartments would have no reason to cut through Orchard onto Gardenside because that would not connect them to their apartment building. using the logging road as the access road to the apartments, which already has a natural buffer zone to Rose Lane, as long as they don't clear that. It is worth noting that currently the access point, both pulling in and out of Papa's Ice Cream has 3 lanes, one pulling into the parking lot and 2 exiting. The first one was a left-hand turn lane and the other a right-hand turn lane. If you could possibly consider making that the access road to those 60 apartments, that would alleviate a lot of traffic. And I mean no disrespect, but the traffic numbers that he quoted, we have probably easily 30 cars pulling out of Gardenside onto Rose Lane. Rose Lane is the main access point from 25 into the Gardenside State condominiums. So you have all of those residents that I don't believe were factored into the traffic study, let alone any given day, if you just park your car at the intersection where the daycare is, all of the traffic going in and out of that daycare throughout the course of the day, and the veterinary practice, it's much more than 24 cars a day. Thank you for your time and consideration. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
My name's Scott McKean, and I live at 8 Blueberry Lane, which is also in Gardenside. I wonder if you could back up some of these so it shows the slide where, keep going. Well, that kind of shows it, but one of the things that I've noticed, I live on 8 Blueberry Lane, which I don't know if there's a pointer here, if I could come up there and just point out to it. If you look at this,
There's a right-of-way.
this lane over here, if you look at the water that drains from here, from Hannaford Brothers comes down, and if you look at some of your wetland charts, it comes down through here, and it goes around through here, underneath, and it comes out here. If you look at
Can we,
all of
I'm
this
sorry,
on
we
the-
can't hear you on the recording if you're
I'm
away
sorry.
from the mic, so.
Okay, but the other area is where it comes down here, and right over about where the veterinarians is, all that water crosses underneath Rose Lane, goes over Sunflower, and that too goes to the other side of Blueberry Lane. So you're looking at all the water drainage, and that includes the other side of Route 25 that is going to be developed. All of that water from that, as far as I can see, goes on both sides of Blueberry Lane. And now you're adding something behind it, which is going to add more water into that wetlands. Right now, if you look at where the water comes behind Sunflower, crosses over the thing, it's quite the river that we see. And when it rains hard, and we have seen it do that, there's a ton of water that's coming through both sides of that. And that is something that Gardenside has to maintain as far as the drainage goes. So it makes me wonder if there is a drainage study when they do this. You know, we've seen a lot of stuff in the news over the past 2 weeks about how we're in a place that isn't going to be affected by floods, and places are being affected by floods. So I hope you do a study to look at that.
Thank you.
I'm Eric Black, and I live at 3 Orchard Road. I would like to add something to what he just said. I don't have a problem with my cellar and wetness, but all the houses on the other side have terrible problems with flooding. The house on the corner, I think it's probably 2 Orchard Road, the owner told me that he's now had his 3rd sump pump. He now has a 100-gallon-a-minute sump pump, and when it's raining, it's running full-time. So there's an enormous amount of water coming down through there. A lot of it crosses the road onto my land, and then when it's raining, I get kind of a river right past my house. But somebody needs to step up to the plate, and a lot of that, I think there was work done some years ago across the way that caused all of that water to come to our side. But there should be some attention paid to that. One other thing, while I'm up here, is this elder housing that's going in, or is this anybody that's going to be renting these apartments? This is for anybody?
From what they said, I mean, they've got 3 stories and only 80 units are gonna be first floor, so I can't see elderly people climbing 3 sets of stairs to get to the top floor.
My concern is there's an enormous amount of pressure for housing illegal aliens. And if we end up with, 25 or 30 families speaking that many different languages, our school's going to be overwhelmed with expense, and my tax dollars and everybody's tax dollars are going to double. So I don't know if there's something we can do to ensure that we don't become a sanctuary city and not end up in the kind of horror show that Portland has, where they've got as many as 11, 12, 13 different languages being spoken in the same classroom. So, thank you.
Good evening, Anthony Folsom, Standish resident. About the water runoff this year when Dana was doing his land across the street, what was going across the street. John got quite a few calls about that. The erosion that went down by these people's houses was horrifying. I wouldn't want anybody directing their water across into my yard like what was happening. Also, when Todd brought up about the fire hydrant, I was thinking that myself, the concern about that. Now, he said 700 feet. Is that 700 feet the furthest house away, or is that stage 1 or stage 2? I would like it seen at the center of the development for safety to the people that are in the development. I think that's a big concern. And I just feel bad for the neighbors that live in that area. Thank you.
How you doing? My name's Larry Scola, 4 Garden Drive. I own the gym across the street. When I get out during busy times, I'll leave Hannaford, take Orchard Street, and I'll have 3 or 4 cars go behind me, thinking there's a quick way to get out. And they go right through our parking lot and realize they end up going up Rose Lane because they realize I'm just going home. This is going to get atrocious, and especially if we talk about a long-term, we connect to 35. People are going to try to cut through there to get through that intersection and not have all that traffic. It's going to be a horror show for our safety of our people. Also, you're looking at the parking for this spot is not going to nearly handle the people that are going to be living in here. You're looking at 2 spots for a 2-bedroom place. Let's say you got 2 people working and a teenage kid. There's 3 cars right there. If their friends come over, they can be parked all the way down Rose Lane. And Rose Lane's not big enough for cars to be parked on the side of the road and 2-way traffic there. It's impossible. I don't see how it's possible if they're going to be able to only have 2 spaces with no sidewalks to walk on. That's not going to be safe for these kids who are going to be stuffed in here and try to walk around. There's not enough parking anyway. There's going to be people parking double parked, blocking lanes, blocking fire lanes. It's inedible. So I really want to think about that parking situation and the traffic going through, especially when we get to 35, because that's the long-term plan. I know it is. We all kind of really know what it is in the long term and what that's going to be. It's, if you look at School Street down on 114 and 35, how that gets, this is going to be worse than that, but we're going to go through private roads to get there and not just a public road. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Folsom again. What's the height of these buildings?
A little under 35 feet, I believe.
A little under? Is it 35 the cap in Standish? Is that why we're sinking some of the buildings? What happens if they go over 35? If they're ending?
Well, there's a formula. It's 35 feet from the average
From the ground.
ground.
It's from the,
The
yeah.
mean of the ground's 35 feet.
Not digging a hole in the ground and then 35 feet, it's 35 feet from
Surface of the ground.
surface of the
average.
ground.
Thank you.
You can build the ground up. 35 feet and then build 35 feet?
I'm Pat Whitten, excuse me.
CEO
at
let my neighbor do
5
that.
Sunflower Lane. I've lived there now for 6.5 years, and I have to say, traffic is an issue, particularly on Rose Lane. You should note that there is no sidewalks on Rose Lane, and if you've got that many cars going up and down there, it's gonna be a problem for people walking. We are a plus 55 community, and as they said, the average age is around 75. People like to get out and walk. That's about the only activities that they can do. I really think this project is way too aggressive. And I too believe that if it has to happen, that the road to that should be at the Papa's Ice Cream. They had logging trucks down in there last winter, hauling out logs, so there's certainly enough room for them to put their own driveway down in there. I'm concerned about children. As I said, we're a 55-plus community. Some people appreciate children, others don't. I had 5 of my own. I like the peace and quiet now. So, but I don't mind once in a while a child going through or whatever. We get a lot of walking people down in our area. I've been down in the woods down behind with my dog. It's totally wetlands down there, totally wetlands, everywhere you go. Also, when they built the second phase of Gardenside, surprisingly, they ran into an awful lot of ledge in there. They had to do a lot of blasting and everything else. And just the noise of trucks coming, going, and everything is really a bothersome thing for a lot of people. The traffic issue will be outrageous. As I said, we have 38 units. Everybody has a car. Everybody has service people coming in. There's UPS, there's FedEx, there's, you know, people fixing their washers and dryers and things like that. And there's an awful lot more than 24 cars, believe me, because my unit backs up to Rose Lane. I can't sit out there. There's no privacy out there. There's cars going by all the time. And I think, what about our schools? Are our schools going to be able to handle all of these? I won't say all of these children because I don't know how many, but there could be several children in there. And that's going to increase our tax dollars. And as someone else ahead of me said, we pay our taxes, but we don't get hardly any benefits from the town. They don't plow our roads. They don't pick up our trash. Really, if we go to the dump, if we went to the dump, it's $25 a year plus whatever else you might want to drop off. And our fees are getting out of hand just on the basis of cost of living is getting so high. Just this year, we have noticed as the budget is being done for next year, we're going to have a significant increase just to cover the cost to keep our project going. I'm just very concerned about this. I think it's way too aggressive, too many houses, too many people. Do we really want that for our town? I've lived in this town since 1972. I've seen it grow. It's been kept very colonial type, very small town type. I understand there's a need for housing, believe me. But our town seems to be, our center of town is turning into gas stations, garages, and car parts places. And it just isn't as pretty as it used to be by any means. So I'm just concerned about the whole project. I obviously am not happy with it, and I don't want traffic like that in my backyard. That's about all I have to say. I just, I don't know. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
One more question. So when we got approved for the solar power to use that land to get it back there, and now we're using that to get over here, if we didn't get the solar power approved, would they have access over there? Did they get the solar power approvals to get that road in there? And gonna forget about the solar power later on, because it's been a couple years now, and that's why they did, to get that over there? I don't know.
I think Mark Floor expressed at the meetings that that was granted.
Yeah, I mean, the owner of that strip of land is Mark Floor, or I think it's Remarkable Homes, Inc., or something like that, who was one of the original developers of Gardenside. He retained that strip of land to access the land that he retained behind Gardenside. So it's his land to have a say-so over, and is my understanding, though again, we've asked for some clarity on that to make sure this is all on the up and up, that they have an agreement with these property owners, because they're not using that strip, which has some significantly heavier wetland to get across, to access the back of the parcel to do part of that solar project, which is on both owners' properties.
So it was just kind of, seemed kind of thought of me, I wonder would they got that project going, that's been 2 years, one more year, then it's ixnayed kind of from you guys, so I don't know if that was just to justify the means, but, all right, thanks for the question. That's it.
I'm sad we didn't get our Mexican restaurant.
I know, me too. Already existing.
Still got time. Still got time. You want to cook? Anyone else?
You don't want to eat my cooking.
Seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing for now?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded, to close the public hearing. Any further discussion with the board? Carolyn?
Yeah. Not about the, no, I want to close the meeting, sorry.
Close the public hearing,
Are we voting? No.
Oh, well.
Okay, let's vote.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor? All right, public's closed. We want to schedule a site walk. Days are getting shorter.
And we're gonna have the time change,
And we're gonna have the time change.
and you're not here.
Can we do it on a Saturday at all, or no?
On for 1 week.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if it was longer than that.
If you want to, you can get rid of me.
Do you work Saturday mornings?
Anyways, Carolyn, you,
Does anybody work
that's just
Saturday
something I
morning?
threw out. What did you want?
No, I was just,
I work now, so I need to go. I
I'm
gotta
just
go.
looking at the front of this.
Yes?
I still am having a really hard time understanding, maybe I'm not 3D visually enough, but to walk through this tunnel to get into the building is that what it's really gonna look like without any kind of landscaping or anything? You're just walking into a,
No, it's certainly an architect's rendering. It's not photorealistic as far as the landscaping that's going to be around the structures, so it was just, hopefully, it was intended to help visualize what the buildings do look like, but the surrounding environment is not, doesn't depict what the plans are going to depict.
Why is one side higher than the other? Is there a bigger ceiling, taller ceiling?
I don't think that's the intent.
It has it as
Elevations
being higher.
show it.
I think it's
can't
just
speak to the
different
arch-
roof lines.
I can't speak to the architecture, but
Okay.
it's intended to make it more visually interesting rather than having a uniform,
Block.
right.
yeah, that part's okay, but
We don't have any architectural guidelines for residential, right?
not architectural, but we can certainly say, geez, that's kind of, was it.
Just take a quick look here.
Sure. An imagination.
I think we need to consider two things. One, the site walk, and the other one, tabling
Tabling.
this till such time that the applicant has all the information needed and resolved with third party and staff.
I'm all for tabling it.
Site walk. Can we do and can anybody do Saturday mornings? Rather than,
Early.
huh?
Early?
Well, like,
After
yeah.
6.
9?
dark at 6.
9 o'clock? 9? 9:30?
No, that would be all right.
Depends on the Saturday.
Yeah.
Depends on the Saturday, like, sorry.
The only one I won't be around, let's see, what's that one? Yeah. Saturday, November 2nd. That's the first day of hunting season. I don't think they'll be out there hunting, though.
No, I've got a bike rodeo in Portland, I won't be available.
And the only one I won't be around on will be the 26th. But I can do the 19th,
Of which month?
October,
October?
probably even November 9th will be all right, because by then, the time change will take effect. We'll have a little bit more time.
The 19th is the public safety fair here.
Yeah, and I won't be here.
October 9th, November, what, 9th? What'd you say?
October 19th.
Yep, but you can't do it.
No, I was just saying that the safety.
Public
fair-
safety is what he's saying, but I'm saying I'm not gonna be here on October 19th, no.
No.
But yes, I could do the 19th. Preferably in the morning.
9?
Is I can do the 19th as well.
Okay, and how about 9 o'clock on the 19th? Todd just can't make it.
I leave in I'll be on a plane in about 8 hours, and I won't be back until sometime on the 19th, as far as I know. Depending on Florida and hurricanes and whatever's going on down
There'll
there.
be nothing left of Florida, so.
I leave for Orlando in a matter of hours, and I won't be back until everything gets done down there.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I've got my flight all confirmed. Mr. Blaken knows, it's one advantage of having military friends. I can get places where people don't want to go.
So we doing the 19th at 9 AM?
You'll have to do it without me, but you don't strictly need me to be there. I'm out of town that weekend.
Can you do that?
Certainly.
Okay.
Do we have an,
I would say
Enough
if
of
we had
agreement?
some general idea where the buildings are going,
So you want the corners of the buildings, and you want...
stakes on the center line of the road, so we had some ideas visually how the road flows in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do we need anything else?
Yeah.
Okay?
Can we also get an idea of where that logging road comes in, just to see?
Yeah, I think
That
that's
looks good.
that's obvious, isn't it?
From by the ice cream?
Goes in by Papa's and reaches straight out through, right? The visual, we can see it, visually it can show.
nine?
Can I make a comment? I tried walking down that road yesterday. I couldn't get down it.
You gotta go to the mic, Eric, sorry, they can't hear you on the recording, that's what she was yelling at. Sorry, Eric.
I tried walking down that road behind Papa's yesterday. It's just, it's all brush because it's all wet. And if you're in a skiddy, you can probably get down there, but I don't think you can even walk down there. It's all wet, so.
Okay.
Understood. But you can see the clearing.
Yeah, you can, it is tough walking.
I don't think we do it.
Well, we'll just look to see where it is, that's all.
All right, so the 19th at 9 AM?
Yes.
Bob's not gonna be here. How does that fit with you, Patrick?
I got kids' sports, but I might be able to push it and make it.
Okay,
I can make it.
you can make it, you can make it. All right, so most of us can make it. And if the building's staked and the few stakes on the road, I assume we leave them there and we can ride by. Todd can ride by and take a look. Super. And Patrick, if he can't make it.
I'll try to get there
That
at
takes
least
care of
for
that.
a half hour.
Is there a motion to table this until such time that the applicant,
I so move to table this.
till the applicant can respond and furnish us the missing documents?
Yes.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Very good. Thank you. Look forward to getting the rest of the package.
Yes, thank you
We'll
for
see
your
you on the
input.
19th.
Motion to close the,
You have to have the public hearing for the four.
Two of them.
A few of them too, huh?
Yeah, there's several.
Not over, but
So the next item of business
Get out
will
by
be,
that's good. I can't complain.
that's really good.
I can't complain.
Oh, yeah, we weren't even through the first application.
well, let's let them
Just
clear out
looking for my-
first, okay?
I know, I watched it on TV.
Pull the
The
plug on.
comfort of my bed.
Anybody who wants to
I
stay
lived
for the
it.
public hearing, the ordinance changes, welcome to it.
No, this is like work stuff, like I hate to say it, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
the boss is sending us down there. You know, my company occasionally sends people like me to bring in.
Yeah, I would give him to
Charles.
put him in the minutes.
Either me or the planner.
Medicine.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank
Thank
you.
Good
Yeah,
job.
We'll put those in the minutes, right, Charlie?
So it is, it's related
Yeah.
to
Just
reacting to the hurricane.
going down to help out.
That's great, that's fantastic.
Yeah, my wife and daughter are coming with me, but they're miserable because it's gonna be probably 3 days in.
So that would be affected by the
They'll
moratorium.
be in Disney.
We
They'll
have
be
3 items, 3 or 4.
Well, good luck with the trip, that's really noble of you.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's no big deal.
4 items.
How many folks we got here for the public hearings for the 4 proposed amendments? And I'm going to ask Scott if you just highlight them.
Oh, yeah, so we'll start so just as a reminder, this is we're required by state law to have public hearings for changes to land use ordinances, and the ultimate decision on any of these ordinances is made by the council, and I believe all of these items are on their agenda tomorrow night. The first one is a amendment to 181, basically all parts, but primarily the use lists, and it is in referencing to the so-called editor's notes that are attached to many of the listed uses. These are, after some research, sort of vestigial items from a 1998, 96 land use ordinance that has grown into what we have today. And many of them are, at this point now, incorrect, confusing, or redundant. And so we've been, from a staff level, just decided we need to get rid of them. This was initially brought up because of the housing changes we made last year in response to the state law. One of the notes that recurs repeatedly says that you are referencing the ADUs, which are now much more permissive, and things like they can't be allowed in cluster subdivisions or stuff as notes are against state law. So we had to get those out of there, and in doing it, we did a sort of comprehensive review of this and removing a number of those notes, and as well as notes referencing shoreland, because we have the whole shoreland ordinance, and again, these have not been updated to reflect changes to the shoreland ordinance, and a few other items that were just clearing up contradictions within the ordinance.
Are they adding the ordinance about everything is supposed to be photographed?
Right, this is not changing shoreland, this is only sticking to land use.
Okay.
I know that's something you're interested in, I am still working on that, it's
Okay.
just some other things have taken precedence.
And he has the pictures from the last one.
Yes, thank you, I saw those, yeah, but we're supposed to do, every somebody
Yeah.
cuts a tree down, you're supposed to have a
There's a
photo.
few updates we need to make, mostly minor, and that is still being worked on in the background.
That's different from this.
That's separate from this.
Shoreland zoning.
Right.
Okay.
Members of the board?
We're gonna tackle these one at a time, or just,
I
Yeah,
think we
let's
can
do
do,
one at a time.
we can Do it either way.
I think
First
all
gotta
we
find-
have
First, we
is
gotta find out if anybody from the public.
our input, if we
We
have
gotta
it.
do them one at a time so we can make sure we have the public hearing specifically in each one, so we meet
Okay.
that law requirement.
Any public want to speak on that one?
This is the amendment to the Standish Town Code, Chapter
Okay.
181, Land Use, Part 1, Zoning, Article 3, District Regulations, Editor Notes, and Municipal Section, multiple sections. I'll get it out.
Does that take care of that one?
Seeing none? Close the public hearing? Okay. We have to vote on these?
Nope.
Vote?
Nope.
No, these just go
These are,
council.
the council makes all votes, it's, the governing body has to make the
Right.
votes, but
This is just
state
public
law
hearing.
requires a public hearing in front of the planning board, and that's primarily that every town has a planning board, not every town has a council, so.
Right. Some have selectmen still. All right, the second item.
So the second one is a property owner in town brought to the ordinance committee, a request to change the language in the Standish Corner Form-Based Code Village District to remove the language prohibiting wall-mounted signs above the level of the second floor, second-story floor. And the ordinance committee agreed that that was a reasonable request. It does not change any of the requirements for materials, size, lighting, any of that. Those will all stay the same. It's just allowing them higher up on the building. It does not open up in-window signs, so those would still be prohibited as they are now.
So if I understand you, it allows putting signage above the second floor? Above the
It's-
floor of the second floor?
Right, above the floor of the second floor. So you're above the first story, really.
Above,
It's-
above the first story, gotcha.
Really?
I think before people change an ordinance, they ought to understand why it was written that way to begin with. And so this language is totally in opposition to urban planning best practices. And when we went through the ordinance, it was a big deal, signage. It had a lot of attention to it. And we were very fortunate to have professionals guide us through this process. And for a very short time, Standish also participated in the Main Development Foundation's Main Street Maine program, very short time. And this proposal runs counter to that, because this, instead of maintaining the character of your Main Street, this is a step closer to creating the strip development that everybody is opposed to in our last two comprehensive plans. And what makes me concerned about this is that, a year ago, before I got on the board, we had development that came before us, and people cried, nothing's happening, there's no development in the village. So we have to let these businesses come forth. And now we're hearing from the public, there's so much development going on in the village, and it is all the pedestrian, the growth area is all to enhance the pedestrian-friendly vision that the comprehensive plan sought to foster. So this runs completely counter to the vision and to the comprehensive plan. And I think it's based on development interest and not the town's best interest. And I'll just say one other thing. I live in a house on 25 that sits back from the road. I have 5 centennial maples in front of my house. So normally you would think that my house would not be visible from the street. But, I had a phone call this week telling me that I needed to remove the basket off the front of my door because my flowers had died and it really didn't look good. So that's from Route 25. People can see. You don't need to have these signs on the building when you have signage right on the street that's eye level, both if you're walking and if you're driving.
I'm willing to have this recommendation that you're suggesting. I'm willing to join you in this recommendation to the planning, to the town council.
This is a public hearing, so the point is that if you want to make a statement, you can go tomorrow night. It's going in front of the council.
This
Right, but I'm
is the
just trying to
public hearing.
provide
Yeah.
some
That's the place
background
to do it.
into this.
And we can make recommendations as the planning board. We can make
Right.
recommendations as a planning board to the town council.
Hi, Deb. I'm Todd. I've been here a couple of months and haven't met you yet. But the case is that the comp plan's 20 years old, and they're not changing the lighting or any other standard. And the fact that what Carolyn said about people being upset about business development, I heard the polar opposite. I talked to 40 businesses when I was campaigning for this seat, and I talked to 150 people. There's not this overwhelming desire to turn Standish into Wyndham. It's not going to happen. But at the same time, there's not this overwhelming concern that that we're going too far. This is just a minor modification. Now, tomorrow night, by the way, I would not support that kind of statement that, oh my God, we have to mounting a sign on the beginning of the second floor. It means that, I hate to say it, the corner office, which is an old farmhouse, you couldn't put a sign up on the one side that faces George E. Jack and the current standard. And, the problem you have is I don't see the rational thing for us. If you want, go tomorrow night and talk in front of the council. But this is the constant thing I've heard about the fact that people, are using a comprehensive plan that's 20 years old. Don't get me wrong, the comprehensive plan right now, I think there was a posting about the fact of the current 10-year plans being reviewed, and then they're looking for input, on Facebook, or the rec was sending out an email. But the practice is that this is not the thing where we have to say, oh my God, they're not, as Scott said, we're not making a change to the fact they're not changing anything about lighting or in-window signs or anything else. This would just allow somebody to put a sign on a building above the first floor.
And you're allowed your opinion, and Carol and I are allowed our opinion, and that's the way the public hearing goes, so the two of us can have our opinion about that.
I agree, and the place to make that known is tomorrow night at the council meeting, because we can't vote on anything and make any changes here.
No, we can't but I believe,
can
Scott,
as a
isn't
member.
it true that the planning board can,
If the board wishes to take a formal stance on this as a board,
okay.
it can.
So does anybody else on the board care?
I think, see, that's the thing
Oh,
about it,
then no.
is that,
You can make a motion, see if it'll pass.
I make a motion that we, as a board, suggest that they keep the signage on the first floor.
Is there a second?
yeah, I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion by the board on this?
Yes. The comprehensive plan is underway, and any changes can be made at that time with a new comprehensive plan. That the process has started, it's pointless to, it really defeats the purpose to tie the new comprehensive plan to practices that we ought to know do not serve the community. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Anyone else?
I work for a business that has a sign
Up on
Well,
the third floor.
of the second floor,
Yeah.
so I don't think I can complain.
Anybody else?
Was this brought forward as a specific request with a project in mind? Or how did this originally come
Napa.
forward?
A member of the council who, acting as a private citizen and not as a member of the council, asked the ordinance committee, this is Councilor Thomas, who owns the building at the corner of the Standish corner, and said that in her thoughts of her building and also in her reaction to hearing the board's discussion about Maine Optometry's project, that she felt that I believe she was either hadn't thought about or was unaware of the current standards, and she felt that it was reasonable to want a sign above the second story floor. I hope when she watches this that I paraphrased that accurately. But I think that's about it. And the two other ordinance committee members felt that was a reasonable request, and this is going to the full council.
We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 2, all those opposed? 4, 5. 5 opposed. So you are welcome to go to the council tomorrow night. Anybody from the public like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. Our next item.
Was there one more?
Amendments to Standish Town Code regarding the division of dispatch and following chapters. Chapter 3, Administration of Government, Article 10, Public Safety Department, subsection 3-36, Establishment, Department Head, enumeration of divisions, and section 3-44, Establishment, Division of Dispatch, Chapter 142, Fire Prevention, Article 1, Sprinkler Systems, subsection 142-4, Installation, Chapter 181, Land Use, Article 4, General Standards, subsection 181-16-1, Blasting, and Chapter 252, Streets and Sidewalks, Article 3, Construction and Acceptance, subsection 252-23D, Naming and numbering streets and roads.
So when the ordinance was set up, it included within the Public Safety Department a requirement to maintain a local dispatch department. The town has since outsourced that to Cumberland County Dispatch, and we are finally getting around to updating our ordinance to remove all the things that we are no longer doing for that, updating any references that require that the dispatch office be noticed to the appropriate other entity. So sometimes it's the fire department, sometimes it's Cumberland County Dispatch, and making sure that we're bringing the ordinance in line with how we actually operate the town.
Sense? Board members?
I'm fine.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
We have no dispatch, so.
Members of the public want to speak?
That's all of it. So anything in chapter 3 is the setting up of the actual department, and removing that setting up language. The chapter 142 fire prevention, the sprinkler systems, is that if you have a sprinkler system with an automatic alarm that can report to an entity, it should report to the Cumberland County Dispatch, not local dispatch. And the blasting is the same. You have to alert dispatch before you do any blasting. We're alerting the proper dispatch, not the one that doesn't exist. And streets and sidewalks, naming and numbering just says that dispatch has to be made aware of when we have a new street with a new name, so they know how to get there. And again, that's updating it so that the proper entity is informed.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Move on to the final one. Amendments to Standish Town Code regarding private roads in the following chapters. Chapter 181, Land Use, Article 2, Definition, subsection 181.3, Terms defined, and subsection 181.4, Lots, and Chapter 252, Streets and Sidewalks, Article 5, Design and New Construction, subsection 252.31, Street Classification and Design Standards.
So this is another one where we've have a couple separate elements have come together to all get addressed at the same time once we started doing one of them. The initial impetus for this was the appeals board sent a letter to the council requesting changes to how we handle private roads. Part of the issue is we have private road standards that were in the back lot portions of the land use ordinance, and they required that any road serving more than, let's see, I think it was 2 units, be brought up to full public road standards, whether it was a private road or not. And we were getting into a lot of issues with roads that predate our road standards, not either being impractical, impossible, or legally impossible to upgrade to those standards, whether the old right-of-ways weren't wide enough or they're significantly longer so that the price would be expensive. And many of these have many houses on them already. They're currently operating in a way that makes sense for the most part. And yet new development on them was being told they would have to build that whole road up to modern standards. And that was then brought to the appeals board as a hardship to get a waiver from that so that they could pull building permits for lots they have to build on these roads. And the appeals board felt that, and town attorney felt that was the improper way to do this and asked that we take a look at our standards and figure out ways to make this better. So in doing that, we've taken the private road standards out of the back lot section and put them in with the road standards, which makes some amount of sense. And then we have, in response to the appeals board letter, proposed to allow more units on a gravel way. So it's not being built up to public road standards. You can now have up to 5 units on a gravel way. So that's 16 feet wide, 15 inches of subbase, so on and so forth. And then anything 6 or more has to be brought up to the town road, full paved public road standards. We are also including a provision for, exactly what are we calling them? Basically grandfathered private roads, roads in existence prior to the town's road standard adoption of 1996. And lots that are otherwise legal that front on a private road that is established and constructed prior to 1996 can be developed without bringing it up to those standards, provided that they are inspected by the Public Works Director and the Public Safety Director and found to be of adequate shape and repair and size, construction, to be safe to have town public safety vehicles traverse these roads in the event of an emergency. So that's the first big issue. The second one is the Public Works Director had asked that we look at the roads for which there are public easements and that the town has longstanding agreements to provide winter maintenance on, so plowing, and make sure that we have some ability to ensure that those roads are kept up to a standard so that our trucks actually can plow them and that can be done safely. So we're adding some more formal language to the ordinance to create some standards for what those roads need to be kept to and a process through which they are inspected and the ability to stop providing that maintenance at such time that they are not kept to that standard.
Is there not a state law that was just passed within the last couple of years that allows the town to go in and maintain it and then pass that cost on to the owners?
And I think the town has no particular interest in exerting its will over the private roads.
If you're trying to get a fire truck down there or an ambulance and it's in complete disrepair,
Well, and
there were
that's-
sections in the state that triggered that law.
I mean, I think if we get into roads that are a safety issue, that's separate from providing winter maintenance, and that'll be something the town will have to deal with at such time.
But you might want to just check that law and maybe even reference it in ours so that it's got some bite. I mean,
Part of the reasons to put these standards in, especially for those grandfathered private roads, is to give a standard so that, because this also includes an update to the language that defines a private road to include roads with public easements. Because we had run into an issue with, I think it was Middle Road, which is a discontinued road. The town does not own it, but the town did retain a public easement. And our private road definition was such that if the public had any rights to it, it was not considered a private road. But it's not a public road because the town has not taken ownership of it, and it's not public in any way other than that. So we are running into an ability where the ordinance did not allow us to put any standards on construction on these roads that have public easements on otherwise private roads that are largely non-existent if you've been down Middle Road in a while. So this gives us some stance to go in and say, well, okay, we understand that you're on a right-of-way, you're on a road that somewhat exists, you want to put a house in, and we have some ability to say this needs to be brought up to a standard that allows for safety.
Good move.
Good, excellent, all of it. Yeah.
Anyone from the public like to speak on this? Seeing none? We're all set?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Oh, let's see. No, I take it back. I had a question about changes in the sprinkler system, but that was the one before this one.
Yeah, that was part of the dispatch, yep.
Okay. I'm all set.
Now I think it's the time we ask if you want to, the chair would entertain the motion to
You will.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Oh,
Wait,
sorry, you have a public?
Is it open to the public right now?
Yeah?
Yes.
My question back on the blasting part, it says, butters must request in writing to be notified when blasting will occur, and the blaster shall notify by phone 24 hours prior, but it's up to them to prove that the person they're calling got the call. So who do you request in writing that to? Cumberland County Dispatch, or the CEO here, or who?
Your request in writing, I generally believe that that goes through the code enforcement officer,
Okay.
and that he will then give it to whoever's doing the blasting, and so that they can make that contact.
Okay, thank you.
But you should still inform the Cumberland County Dispatch, because you don't want them showing up as you're blasting.
No, I got a letter from a butter,
Yep, that's okay.
which I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, that's, we're not making any changes to notification of individuals, that's all staying the same.
All right, we have a motion on the floor.
Second.
It was seconded. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Patrick, see, I was hoping for the COVID test.